Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City, where we want to help you build a Lego city regardless of the space you have. This is another series in the videos I called Building a MOC from Start to Finish. And if you missed my previous one, we had quite a fun one. That was a small police station or a police post. It was built on a 16 by 32 stud base plate and I think turned out really well. If you missed that, do check out the link in the card above or the description below. That particular build inspired me to try another government type building, and I've always wanted a post office because there really hasn't been much of a post office set released by LEGO in recent years. So I thought of building my own. It will be built on this base plate. It'll be 1 story high, and I do know I want to have some space for these scooters, which are for the postman to deliver the mail. Other than that, I also know where I want to position it in my Lego city, specifically Metro City, which is one section of my custom Lego city. This will be a end modular build. That means I'll have modular buildings in a row, and this will be at the end. So I'll build the building flush to one long side of the base plate, and there'll be sidewalks on 3 sides. That's why I call it an end building and not necessarily just a corner build. However, I think you'll also be able to use it as a standalone building, as you'll see as we build this. I have some rough ideas of how I want to build this. There's no concrete plan. As with all my builds of this nature, it is pretty organic. I start with a basic plan and we go with the flow, and I just build this in real time and also share with you some of the techniques and tips I use to build MOCs. In this particular design, because it's such a small build, I want to maximize space. So I'm going to use the technique of building different utility items into the walls of the building to save space. And this will be clearer as I build this. But that's one of the techniques I'll be focusing on for this particular build. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is to figure out how I want to map out my footprint of the building. And I'll always use some 1 by something long plates, such as this black plate, and I'll lay out the footprint of the build. I also use some 2 by 2 tiles, which will represent the sidewalk, and this also helps me map out the area. So what I'm going to do is have a sidewalk of maybe just 2 by 2 on one side, and for the front I will have a 4 stud wide sidewalk basically. So this is what we are looking at. So in terms of a footprint, this is going to look something like that. This is one side, and then this is going to be built this way, so I can kind of fill in the space for now. Over here, let's just put this 1 by 2. Over here, I'm not going to put this here because I know I'm going to have a door somewhere here. So let's figure out how much space we're going to leave specifically for these scooters. So this is what we have over here. I think 8 studs should be quite comfortable. So let's just use light gray tiles for now. And what I'm going to do is just put 8 studs in, and that's just to give me an idea of how wide the sidewalk would be. So this will be a parking space, not just a sidewalk. And I have this part over here, which is actually the handle of a pail, and that allows the scooter to stand, and I think that's a comfortable space. So that's where I'm gonna have the sidewalk too, which means I will have this somewhere here like this. That's basically roughly how I see it. So I'm not going to press it down hard because I have to lay out the space. So I mentioned something about doors here, and I figure this is a post office. It makes sense to have double doors. So something like this somewhere here. So this kind of makes sense, I think. And in terms of the space, let's assume that we have 4 studs. So maybe something like that. And we could have this over here, and that will continue. So I could take another plate and try to figure this out. Well, that's why I didn't put this down that hard. As you can see, that's just so that I could displace this by 1. So let me lay this out and then we'll get back to the doors. So here we have everything laid out. and that's where the doors will be. I think this is at least the tentative plan. Now the reason I didn't put plates under here is because I want to do an inset of the door by half a stud, and to create the inset I will need these 1x2 jumper plates. So I'll set them down first. It looks just like this, and this will allow me then to set these two doors, and notice how they are inset in. So for example, if we have a brick on either side, this will probably be more obvious. You can see how that particular double door is now set in by half a stud. Now there's no real functional reason to do this inset except that it just creates visual variety for the build, and that's why I'm doing it. Alright, so that's the first step. What I want to do is also to figure out where I'm going to have a side door. I've got one door over here, and that will be, I guess, somewhere here. That is basically two studs over here. I think that makes sense, and that will still give enough space for at least two of these vehicles. So let's assume that is the case for now. What I want to do now is to think about the inside or the partition of this particular post office, or any post office will have a counter. So that makes sense for the counter to be somewhere here, and over here, to me, since this is the back door for the postman, this is some kind of a mail sorting area or storage area. So this should be closed off from the main post office. You know how post office would have a main counter? They usually have a door to a private area, which is the office area, and everything will be walled in. So that's what I intend to do. I intend to create some sort of space over here. Maybe let's try to figure this out. See, what I'm trying to do is figure out the space. So let's say I use 6 studs. If I use 6 studs and I put the wall over here, that will give me a space of, or just 2 studs. So that seems a bit small. Let's see if I can take this off. So let's think about the counter first. So let's say the counter will be 8 studs wide. So it's going to be somewhere here. I want a door. I've actually got a door over here, and I pasted this do not enter sign on it. This sticker came from the new extra sticker pack, so that's pretty useful. And then I'm going to place this somewhere here. Well, let's move this by 1, and the reason is I want to have at least 2 studs over here to have some kind of a pillar, I think, or 1 stud. Maybe I could do 1 stud. If I do 1 stud, this comes over here like that. This may or may not work. Let's think this through one more bit. Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead. At the start of the video, I talked about how I want to build different utilities into the walls. Let me give you an example of what I had in mind. One of the items is basically this, and that's the mailbox. All post office will have some kind of a mailbox built into the wall. So I'm thinking of building a mailbox like this into the wall. Could be like that. Could be like that. This looks a bit too close to the corner, so maybe something like that. Maybe 1 stud in. No, so something like that. So what happens is, this is the post box that you would often see that is on the outside of the post office, meaning if the post office is closed, you still can put in your mail, and then the mailman from the inside of the post office could open this up and take out the mail. So that's what I meant in terms of building utilities into the wall. So now you don't need to have bricks, and you save space because this acts like part of the wall. I was also thinking of having an automated stamp machine. Now, I'm not sure if you have these in your country, but in Singapore, we do have machines where you can buy stamps from. You can even weigh items sometimes and then buy the stamp for it, so that you do not have to queue up in line. This is a build for an ATM that I designed. However, I think it's pretty close to what an automated stamp teller would look like as well. I would change this. For example, I could take this grill piece and I could put in a decorated letter piece like that to make it seem like a stamp machine. So what I would intend to do is then to build this into the wall as well. Maybe something like that. I think that's just about right. So the door can open here, and maybe this can be over here like that. And see, this forms the wall to this private area over here. So now I have one stud that I'll build up over here, and then I'll have a corner stud over here. So the first thing I actually need to do is to put plates down. Okay, so let's take this out for now. I've got a 1x4 plate here, but I want a long plate. So let's look for 1x6. And then I can put my door back, so that opens this way. And then I can continue building it over here. So just to give you an idea, this is my new layout. So if I have a counter over here like that, or maybe it might go in this way because I think there's space for minifigs over here, so I'll decide later on. This is the counter, this is all closed up, so this is the public area of the post office. This is where the post office workers would work to serve customers, and this will be some kind of a mail sorting room or storage area, since this is where they can pick up mail from, and then they can get out to the scooters to send the mail. So I think that's basically the idea. What I need to do now is to change the plate here to a double plate, or at least maybe I'll just add in a 1x4 plate over here. Maybe first I'll take out this, no, I'll keep this, but I'll put this here, and this will go here like that. So now it sits nicely. Later when I build the wall, I'll actually remove this particular tile piece and I'll build it into the machine. Okay, so I've rambled long enough because I am thinking as I go along, but basically I've got the basic layout of the post office. What I do need to do now is to start building the foundation of the building. For the post office, I'm going with a mainly dark grey look. I want this to look like a boring government building. It's not fun and cheery, and I do want it to look different from the post or from the police post that I built earlier. So therefore, I'm going to make this largely grey. I'll use dark grey bricks, at least for the foundation, along with some dark grey masonry bricks to make it interesting. And then I'll probably put a layer of plate to build, to break up that blandness of just a complete grey wall. And then I'll continue building, and I'll figure out where to put windows as well. So let me put in that base layer of brick first, as well as the light grey plate. So here's what I've done. I've added in the lower level of dark grey brick, and I've added in one layer of light grey plates, and I'm going to continue building up at the same. I think I'll build one more layer because it's still too low to add in any windows, so let's add in another layer of grey brick. Alright, at this point I think I can start thinking about windows, and let's see what I have available. Got some big windows here. Now I won't have any windows here obviously because this is going to be against the back of other buildings. Remember, this is a end modular. What's important when you start building MOCs is always to have a minifigure present, and I've got a little postman over here, and the reason is you always want to check the height. So for example, for windows, you do not want to make sure it's too low or too high, and something like this looks about right. So I think this is a good height for windows. I can now think about adding other windows as well. But before I do that, if you notice, this is raised up by one plate over here, and the reason is because of this grey plate here. So what I want to do is do a check. Okay, this looks a bit low for the minifig to put in a letter. So what I want to do is raise this up, and what I can do is to take a plate, maybe a dark grey plate like that, and I can hold these together, and as one unit they can raise up like that. So now it's completely level. And that's a more convenient height, I think, for minifig to put in a letter. So having that in mind, I can think about windows. Maybe I could build windows directly over here, but I think I'm going to use smaller windows like this. But that means I should build one layer of brick first. So let's do that. So this is what I have so far. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Things are being built up. I just realized this is built the wrong way. It should be the other way around. You can't have the public opening up the mailboxes. I'll change that in just a bit. But notice I haven't built this place up, and the reason is I want to put in some modified bricks to put in a sign. I've got the right sign over here. This says City Mail. Is actually a printed sticker. It also comes from the new custom extra sticker pack. Not really custom, but it comes with a whole bunch of different stickers. So this fits very well, and it will work very well as the sign to the post office at the side by the doors. But I'll have to put modified bricks. Now, if you do not have the extra sticker pack and you want to build a post office, or you may want to use this as kind of your model to build your own post office, don't worry, you can also use this envelope and put it maybe on a jumper plate. Let's look for a jumper plate just to give you an idea. You could put it on a jumper plate just like that, and that acts as quite a nice sign as well. So you could put that in place of that sticker tile, and that will work as well. So that's just an idea if you intend to build a post office and do not have that custom or that extra sticker pack. So let me switch this around and let me put the modified bricks, put this up, and build up the rest of the bricks. So this is what I've had so far. As you can see, everything is being built up. That's coming along, I think, quite nicely. That's nothing much to see, but over on this side you see the side entrance, bit of masonry brick just to give some texture. We've got the sign in place. This letterbox is put the right way. In fact, I should cover these studs with this 1x4 red tile, so that looks nice and finished. Now what you notice over here is this is actually one stud lower, or one plate lower than the rest of the wall, and it's also offset. So I need to reset it, and the way I reset it, what I have to do is put a bunch of 1x2 jumper plates over on top. And over here you can see that this door is also one plate lower than the rest, so I'll just have to put a black plate. So I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to build up this side of the internal walls. So I am building this internal wall here. You can see this is the space for the door frame and door. I've built the stamp machine into the wall, and I've built brick and a plate over it. Well, I haven't put the plate yet. I'm actually going to do the plate now, but I've put a brick here. In ideal situations, when you build internal walls, you want to build them into the exterior wall. This is to make sure it's really strong. Now I'm going to give a pass for this one for one main reason. The base of this stamp machine is 2 studs wide, and remember I added in the extra base plate, so this is a very thick wall. If it was just a 1 brick thick wall, it would be a bit flimsy, but right now it's 2 bricks thick, so it's really strong, and it's also really short. So I forewent, well, I don't think there's a word as forewent, but I foregoed putting in this internal wall into this exterior wall until I came to the plates. And what I'm going to do is just use some plates to raise it up to the same height. As you can see, it is a little wobbly, but that's okay. I'm going to put this back here. You can see this is also off, so what I'll do is lock this into place. Ideally I should lock this, so this isn't a good choice. I will actually use a 1x4 over here. So I've now got everything the same height. It's still loose, but that's because I'm going to add in a layer of plates. Anytime you build modular buildings, generally you build up the walls as I've done, and you then connect everything with a layer of 1 by something long plates all around and lock everything in, and generally everything would be quite solid. What I do want to do is just to make sure that I've done everything. I should mention I added in 2 modified bricks here. This was just in anticipation for interior design. I can add some kind of a poster or sign or clock or something as wall decoration. So that's what I did. There are chances I will have to do it somewhere here as well. So maybe we should think about that before I start plating it. So as you start with MOCs, and definitely when I started with MOCs, when I started building, I didn't really worry about the interior detail. I just built the external structure first, and then only when I got that down did I worry about the interior detail. And if you're new to building MOCs, I would say do the same thing. Do not worry about interior detail. You definitely want to plan out your layout, but don't worry about small things like wall decorations or where furniture would be. Just get your structure up and make sure it's solid. When you do get to the point of detailing the interior, you may have to pull out the bricks to exchange parts to modified bricks so you can put in decorated tiles, but don't worry about it at this stage. However, as you get more experience, you can think one step ahead, and that's what I'm doing now. As I'm building this up and seeing how the building forms, I'm thinking where I can put different decorated tiles. For example, I have pre-planned some tiles, such as this post-it pad. Again, this is a sticker that came from the extra sticker pack along with this Wi-Fi sign. And I've got also the standard paintings, which are printed tiles that you get from LEGO sets. So all this is possible to place somewhere inside the post office. For example, now that I look at it, definitely you could put something here. I think that's where the Wi-Fi sign could go, which means that I need a modified plate. So I'm going to change that. So now that I identify it, I can do it before I plate everything up. So I'm going to change that. I've got that there. I think I can have something along this wall as well, but maybe I might have shelves, so probably not. But I think this is a great sign. I think this should go somewhere. And maybe I'll find a place to put it here, or maybe I'll attach it to the shelf. So I won't worry about that right now. Or maybe this could just go here as like a little post-it pads for the postman to know what notes they should do, or any chores, or basically reminders that they should take note of. So I think that might work. So I'll leave that there and I'll change this up. After I change that up, I am going to plate up the entire top using plates. And that looks pretty good. A Wi-Fi sign centered in that small wall. And I've now layered the entire top edges of all the walls, both interior and exterior, with 1x something plates, and everything is now solid in place. This is still a bit flimsy, so there are two things I can do. I could build a crossbar over here, which I think I might as well try to do. In fact, I will do that. I'm going to see if I can build a 1x6 bar. Let's see if I've got a 1x6 brick. Yeah, that will fit over. So I'm going to replace one of those bricks and just build a bar across, and I think that just makes it a bit more stable. Now after I do that, what I'm going to do is to add a layer of tiles as well as jumper plates. Now the reason I'm doing that is basically I want to create the top of this wall for the roof. So therefore you'd always plate it with tiles, but then you would have two jumper plates to hold the roof in place. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I've done is to add in this cross support and replate the top. So now this is really solid. So what I want to do now is to add tiles as well as jumper plates. So I'm going to put a jumper plate here, and I usually put one diagonally across like that. Now the reason I didn't put it all the way to the corner is because notice there are joints here between this layer of plates, and I always want to try to plate over joints, or tile over joints in this case, and this is so that it really makes everything secure. So that's one simple rule when you build: always layer over joints. For every layer you go, and you will have a really solid build. So let me try to tile all this up and we'll see how it goes. And here I have kind of that finished look. As you can see, this particular lip over here comes from the 1x2 jumper plates to reset the inset of the door. This looks alright, everything looks solid, and I think I've managed to finish the basic structure of the building. Now to really know if this works out, I have to build the roof to cover it and see how everything looks like, but my gut feeling is this probably will be it. So I won't go into the detailing for this particular build. I'll save that for part 2 of this video. I should have mentioned that this is a 2-part video, but what I'm going to do is try to finish the roof first, and then we'll see how everything goes together. For the roof, I've got some large plates over here, and I'm going to go for a very simple roof design. Now when you build MOCs, it's always helpful to go with even numbers, because Lego plates generally come with even numbers or even studs. So therefore, if you work in even numbers or even studs for your build, it's easier to match up with Lego plates without having to add single strips of plate. It's just more convenient, so just bear that in mind. In this case, when I build this, it's going to look something like this. There will be a slight overhang. Now, this is something I decided early on with the experience of my police post or mini police station. An overhang always makes the build look better. Of course, the back will be flush with the wall because remember, this is against other modular buildings. But imagine if you don't have it flushed and look something like that. It just doesn't look as nice. So trust me on that. Always just have to have at least a 1 to 2 stud overhang, and a building always looks better that way. You can see this kind of take shape already. You can get an idea of how this looks like. Now, as I look at this build, one thing that strikes me is that it's a bit boring because it's all brown. So you know what I'm going to do before I even build the roof? I'm going to take a step back. And I'm going to change this entire row of bricks over here to light gray. It matches this light gray strip over here, but at the same time, I think would just make this look a bit more bright and just not so dull. So let's do that first. And there we have it. I think that looks better with that light gray brick. This is the crossbar, so I can't change that, but that's the back anyway. So I think this works pretty well. So let's work on the roof now. Anytime you build a roof, you generally want to plate the underside perimeter or border of all the plates with 1 x something plates to hold everything in place. But notice this center portion as well. It's highly advisable for you to put plates across as well. In this case, I'm going to put 2 x something plates across so that it's really strong. So now this acts as a crossbar all across the center of the 4 plates, coupled with the plates on the side underneath. That's pretty strong. But we're still going to add plates on top, or tiles and plates on top, so it becomes even stronger in terms of being held together. I'm going with a really simple design, and I'm going with some drain gutters, and I'm going to create the gutters using these modified rail plates, and I'll place them across 3 sides of the roof. So that's done. As you can see, gutters on 3 sides. For the back, because it's butted up against another building, I will just plate it. And finally, I'm going to add light gray tiles all across the top to lock everything in place and just to give it a more finished look. That looks pretty finished and really solid as well. Now let's put it on the building and we'll see how it looks like. Okay, the reason I'm having a trouble, and that's because of the overhang. Now remember, we have the studs here, but remember we have an overhang of 1 stud. That's why it can attach to the back because the back is flush, but it doesn't grip anything here because there's nothing to grip. So it's a very simple fix, I think, in this case. What I'm going to do, well, it's not that straightforward actually, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try shift this over here, and that should help. And I'm sure this works now. It's nice and solid, and if I add it to the building here, it should just snap in place, and there you have it. I think that looks pretty good. If you think it looks similar to the police post or mini police station that I built, it is intended to, because they're both government buildings, so they can have that same structural appearance, although the aesthetic design is quite different, especially if you have seen that particular construction video. What I do want to do is add some lights. So what I'm going to do is take some lights that I've created using 1x2 black plates and 1x2 transparent plates, and I'm just going to add them all around at even intervals. Well, I am missing 1 set which I'll create later on, but this is basically the idea. Let me put this on and you can have a look at it. So this is where we're at the end of part 1. I've built the structure of the post office, added in just a little bit of detail just to give it a bit of visual variety and texture, added the sign over here. I think even as we see it here, we kind of get a sense that this is a post office, especially with the post box over here as well. And we did the roof as well as the interior layout of the post office. So in part 2, what we're going to do is try to add details, not just for the inside but also for the outside. And the idea is to tile all this area, create some kind of a parking space for these motorcycles, and maybe create a 3D sign for the post office so that it's really large and it pops and you can tell from a distance that this is a post office. Well, that's it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed this video and the process of building this from scratch. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell because you don't want to miss part 2. Thanks for watching. Check out these 2 videos before you go.